Gary Anderson won his first PDC title in nearly 3 years at the most recent Players' Championship event, where he played brilliantly all day and averaged 110 in his last 16 tie. Following the final, where he beat Krzysztof Ratajski 8-5, Anderson spoke to Dan Dawson about his recent improvement in form, and Gary also brought up an article he read online about himself. Gary said that he read a tweet from Paul Nicholson calling him a bad loser, and that he wants to have a chat with Nicholson, as he feels that it's not him who is a bad loser, rather his opponents who do things to deliberately aggravate him. What Anderson saw was Paul Nicholson's article for Sporting Life, where he listed some PDC players who do not cope well with defeat. Today, I'm going to take a look through the examples given in this article and see if Nicholson painted a fair picture of Anderson. But before we get into that, this video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Did you know that PDC TV blocks users from certain countries from watching some streamed events, and you could use a VPN to change your location to somewhere where the event can be viewed? Sending data without a VPN can also leave your information vulnerable, so you can use one to create a secure tunnel between your device and the internet. ExpressVPN also offer 24/7 customer support. To get ExpressVPN, just use the link in the description and you'll get 3 months for free. Right, let's take a look at the examples. The earliest example Nicholson referenced came from the 2009 BDO World Championship, which was Gary's final appearance at Lakeside, ahead of his long-awaited move to the PDC in early 2009. Anderson entered this event as the top seed, being top on the WDF Order of Merit, but ahead of the event, he did not have the best Lakeside record, going out in the first round in 5 of his 7 appearances to that point. However, he managed to get past the second round for just the second time in 2009, with back-to-back wins where his average was 7 points higher than his opponents. He faced 9th seed Tony O'Shea in the quarters and went 3-0 down early on, having missed 19 darts at a double. He brought it back to 4-3, but ended up losing 5-3. Gary was so angry with his doubling performance during this game that he threw his darts into the lake outside Lakeside in anger. It was so cold at that time that the TV cameras managed to find Anderson's darts on top of the lake, which had frozen over. 3 darts were scattered all over the river, but this was not something rare, rather something Gary always did when he suffered BDO World Championship heartbreak. I believe that this showed Gary's frustration with himself failing to fulfill his potential in the BDO, rather than an example of him being a bad loser, as he did not take it out on anybody else. Anderson was drawn against the article's author in the second round of the 2009 UK Open, which was his first appearance in the event. Nicholson took a 5-3 lead in the first to 6th game, and missed a match start at double 4 to win 6-3. Anderson then made it 5-4 before missing 2 darts at tops to force a sudden death leg. This gave Nicholson a shot at the tricky 1-3-2 checkout for the match. He hit the 25 before pinning treble 19, leaving the ball, which he hit under great pressure to win the tie. This was a great shot, and as such, Nicholson let out a big celebration before shaking hands with Gary. Gary didn't look too annoyed on stage, but according to Nicholson's column, one of his friends had to hold Anderson back to stop him from fighting the then Australian number 1. Nicholson said that the aggressive celebration was aimed at the camera rather than at Gary, and that the altercation that followed the game meant that the pair did not speak for around 2 years. On this occasion, I do think that Gary was out of order, as it was a big moment and great checkout for Nicholson, and he had every right to celebrate in the way he did. This isn't the first time that Gary got angry at a celebration, as he also did during the infamous 2018 Grand Slam final against Grand Prix, where I believe that both players crossed the line. Gary called out Gerwin in the 15th leg of this final, where he accused the Welshman of putting him off during his walk back from the board. Gary was already angry at this time, as the large celebrations from Price had wound him up. He also got angry for a similar reason in the 27th leg, but the biggest incident of this game came in the following leg, when Gary pushed Price, who was celebrating right in front of him. Price went on to win 16-13, and Gary left the stage without shaking his hand. I believe that Price was wrong for celebrating directly in front of Gary's face, but that Gary did seem to get overly embroiled despite being a very experienced player. Nicholson also mentioned an incident at the World Grand Prix, which is one of the few PDC majors that Gary has not won. He faced Daryl Gurney at the 2018 edition and was whitewashed by the Northern Irishman. During the players' handshake, it appeared that Gary accused Gurney of making noises when he was throwing. Gary also pointed towards his ears, showing that he was making this accusation. Gurney looked very angry at this and said that he had never done such gamesmanship in his life. Backstage reports also suggested that Gary thought Daryl was slow at removing his darts from the board. It is hard to comment on this incident, as it is not clear if Gurney was actually making noises, but on the surface, it does look like an overreaction following a loss from Gary. There have been some incidents where it is not clear what annoyed Gary. At the last World Championship, Chris Dobie accused Gary of being out of order after the Scotsman said something that annoyed him during the break when Gary was trailing. Last year, Gary also accused Joe Cullen of being a cheat during a Premier League game, which Cullen denied and said that he felt Anderson had let himself down. Cullen looked confused on the stage that night, as did Raymond van Barneveld when Anderson accused him of walking too close to him. After this game, Anderson pointed in RVB's face and gave a frosty handshake. Raymond said that he felt Gary was blaming him for his own misses at double, and said that he always played fair. Nicholson agreed with Barney in his column. This array of incidents does not make Gary look good, but if he truly believes that his opponents are in the wrong, then he should take it up with the DRA, or at least with the player backstage. Nicholson's column is fair enough, and does actually state that Gary handles defeat well most of the time, just not on some occasions. Anderson is an old school player, and just wants to get on with the game at a good pace, without being put off by his opponent, and I believe that he only gets angry when he feels prevented from doing this, as he did in his interview following his infamous game with a very slow Mensa Sulovic at the 2021 World Championship. Some of Gary's best darts come when he is angry, as he becomes even more motivated to beat his opponents, and it shows that he is passionate about the game. I for one am excited to see him practicing again, and delighted that he is making a return to the Euro Tour.